So in this presentation, I'm going to walk you through some background. I'm going to talk to you about the approach to local content, our approach to local content, and why is it so important for ExxonMobil, how do we do it, and why we do it, and what should we expect from our suppliers. Then we're going to move quickly to the impact of COVID-19 on local content, and we're going to try to answer the following questions that we have here. So how are we managing the acquisition of goods and services during this pandemic? What are we doing to develop local suppliers' capabilities in this current environment? Where do we see the opportunities and the risks? And how can governments help local suppliers during this pandemic? And then we're gonna follow by our open discussions and Q&A. So let's get started. So it's important to provide always a definition of local content. Every country has one, every company, every IOC defines local content different. Some even give it a different name. So some call it national content, share value creation. For ExxonMobil, we talk about local content in general. And for that, our definition is that local content is a coordinated, focused, and sustainable approach to developing human, social, and economic capacity. So what does that mean? First, focus, because we work together with different functions. So we work with our public and government affairs, our business lines, our SHE group, safety, health, and environmental. We also work with procurement, where I'm sitting. And so it's a cross-functional effort. It's focused because we have three elements, and we work around these three elements that I'm going to cover shortly. Sustainable, because we want to make sure that we all our approaches, all our initiatives, are not only happening or are focused during construction or only during operations. So it has to be seen as all the phases of an oil and gas project. So and then what is what we want to do? We want to develop all the capacity. We want to develop capacity not only to the people, to the suppliers and the communities, but in all aspects. So that we call it a holistic approach to local content. As I said before, we have three elements. So the first one is workforce development, which includes the recruitment and training of nationals. And that we do it through from our recruitment plans and nationalizations, training, and also how activities like secondments and mentoring and coaching. Supply development is pretty much how we support companies and small and medium enterprises. So by how we can make them competitive, how can we make them develop capacities and actually reach a level where they are able to provide services or goods to oil and gas. So it's the contracting, it's the purchasing of goods and services from national suppliers, from competitive suppliers, and actually the training of these suppliers. Also, strategic community investment, it's pretty much supporting investments that will be supporting the development of skills and capacity to be, for the other two elements. Next, I want to talk to you about the importance of local content. And for ExxonMobil, we take local content very, very serious. And one message that I wanted to share is that whether required or not, whether we have it in a regulation, law, or it's included in the petroleum agreement, ExxonMobil will do local content no matter what. So because it's part of our process, and we start from the very beginning. So why do we do it? First, we want to have sustainable economic capacity in the countries where we operate. Operators like us, we need reliable and qualified suppliers as well as skilled workforce. Also, business value. Business value also brings innovation to local markets. So it's a source of competitive advantage to host countries that to promote sustainable and profitable business. So we want to create that and support that. Local content secures reliable supply chains, especially in times like this, and actually shortens delivery time if you have suppliers in your own region, and reduces overall costs of the operation. Local content is also part of ExxonMobil DNA, so it is what made us a value community member and what brings us closer to our key stakeholders. So we use this as a way to also strengthen our relationship with governments, communities, and our suppliers. Also, local content is supported of an important United Nations item, which element, which is a Sustainable Development Goal. So it's in line with that. Now, how we do it is we have a structured process, but the key thing to actually go through all our process is to address expectations early, not just with government, but also with suppliers, with the communities, with the labor. So, and we have different mechanisms how to do it. But we follow a structured process, and that process, it's not that we use it as a cookie cutter in every country, because what works in one probably doesn't work in others. So that's what assessment of the current workforce skill levels and supplier capacity, as well as the needs of the community, are very important. We rely and we use a lot of independent data. So when we collect information, we like to hire consultants that actually are experts in the area, and actually that are local, that can understand better the market and provide us information from both primary resources and secondary resources. Also, we measure and track our performance, and that's a very important information that actually will tell us whether we are doing the right thing at the right time, in the right place. Also, a lot of collaboration with key stakeholders. So we like to go as a team. Sometimes in countries we go as an industry front. So we kind of create collaboration among all the IOCs that are present in that country, or we just joined part of an industry association. That's very, very important to leverage synergies that we have among all the operators. And also we rely on our experience in other countries. That's very valuable. Lessons learned are always key. We try to come up with case studies to kind of transfer the knowledge, also not only internally, but also externally. I mentioned about what are our expectations from suppliers. What do we see in purchasing local goods and services and developing local suppliers is what creates competitive industrial base. So it is a fundamental element of sustainability of an industry in our business. So for us, it's important that our suppliers are able to meet our basic safety and technical requirements and also have strong business ethics. Therefore, we recognize that some capacity constraints exist, and actually building on those capacity and strengthening these areas is very important. So here's a summary of the areas that we want our suppliers to be aware. Safety first. You will always see that in ExxonMobil we start every meeting, every conversation or all our operations with safety minutes. So this is part of the culture. And then things are very important. I mean, this is not an extensive list, but these are all the most important. So safety always first. You'll see quality, cost control, and schedule completion. Okay, let's move next to the main area of my presentation today, which is the impact of COVID-19 in our operations. So these are some of the initiatives that summarize how we actually handle our procurement activities during COVID-19 since we started with this pandemic back in March. So we have done a lot of regional purchasing, so especially of PPE, protective personal equipment, hand sanitizers, masks, and all this. So when the regions allow us to do that, we actually purchase all this PPE for all the offices that we have in our regional cluster. So examples are in Africa and here in the Americas, some areas of Europe, and of course in Asia. So that would actually help, and we try to get them from local suppliers, or checking if major suppliers have inventories and who collect that. One of the most important, and where I see a lot of opportunities, is what we call debundling or unbundling of large scope of work. I want to come up with a good example for that, and I would say integrated logistics might be an example where I can illustrate this. You have in integrated logistics, you get the things like custom clearance, warehousing, transportation, and also usually that it's provided by one major and integrated logistic company. So that's where we see that these companies are going to have trouble bringing their people or coordinating all that. So that's where unbundling that kind of scope of work and have a local custom clearance, a local transportation company, local warehouses with local suppliers, actually that's going to help. We have seen it, we did this in one of our regions, and it had a lot of success. Of course, it's going to be successful, but the problem is that sometimes we cannot do it because we cannot actually compromise the integrations of our operations, especially when these are high risk, high complexity scope of work that needs to be handled by a major company. But I think that's going to be the trend, and we're going to emphasize that. Also, during COVID-19, some of our purchases were deferred, especially of non-services and non-critical services or materials. So that will allow us to focus on the things that were priority and critical for our operations, and that's what kind of help us focus on sourcing locally. That's why the next one, local sourcing, is we have tried new suppliers. We have been doing a lot of competitive bidding, and for that we're looking at all supplier registration portals, databases, and gather all information from local suppliers. We're testing, pre-qualifying them, and that has helped to incorporate more local suppliers. Also, we've been carefully monitoring the supplier financial health and their capabilities, because of course, a lot of suppliers are going to go out of business or have gone out of business. So we need to make sure that how can the suppliers can be helped, and that's what I'll call in another section, how can governments, how we all can help. But it's important to monitor their financial health. As I said before, we have maximized our existing supplier registration portals. Those are databases where we have in some of the countries. In other countries, we use what government has or what industry association have. But the ones that we have is pretty much to encourage the availability of local suppliers. So cases that we have that are Mozambique, Guyana, big one, and Ghana, and to name some. We also have a big one in Russia. So these are our ExxonMobil owned and administered, managed supply registration portals. Also, we've been holding a lot of virtual forums like this virtual summit, but this case, because we haven't been able to be face-to-face with suppliers, so we're doing some of the forums to provide information. Information sharing is actually very important. We cannot take for granted that suppliers know everything about ExxonMobil, how we run as a big operator, and what are the services that we need for specific locations. So we're trying to leverage a lot this new way of communicating and training and providing, sharing knowledge through virtual arenas, like for example this one. Where we have enterprise development centers, or we call it EDC. For example, we have one center in Guyana. They have switched all their courses that they have in their facility. All they have been switched to virtual courses. So now all the suppliers can get all this training from their offices or from their home. I'm talking about training like Procurement 101, how to prepare a good proposal when you're participating in a RFQ, and things like that. So one question that we have been asked is, okay, during this pandemic, this challenging environment for everyone, does that mean that we're going to stop developing our suppliers? Is that not a high priority right now? And I have to say that it is still continue to be a #1 priority. First, because we need to fast track the development of capabilities among our suppliers. And so now more than ever, we need to focus and continue to strengthening and creating opportunities to make our suppliers more competitive. So we are continue being committed to developing suppliers. And for that, I want to share some of our initiatives that we have taken recently. I'm going to bring Guyana as one of our success story. As I said, we have an enterprise development center there. We call it the center, and they move all of the courses to virtual courses. So things like procurement, HSSE, and mentoring programs for ISO 9001. So this is some of the lists. You can actually go and see some of the examples on the website. Also, again, emphasizing on providing information. We hosted 2 speakers at a program called Join the Conversation. So this is pretty much to explain what this environment is, especially in the crash of the oil price, explaining suppliers, how does that affect us in understanding the situation in general. So it's knowledge is very important. And there have been efforts underway by the center together with the local banks, and see how can they support suppliers in building their requests for credits and for loans, and things like when they need confirmation of a statement that they have a contract with ExxonMobil, so they actually need that financial help. And so with that, we're trying to help them how to comply with some of the requirements. Again, these are activities that are specifically from the center. In other locations, we have reassessed development initiatives as part of our local content plan. So we have made some changes, things that we wanted to do face-to-face, so they are now moved virtually, but pretty much all our local content initiatives for supplier development are gonna stay the same for this year at least. And finally, we are leveraging a lot our relationship with consulting firms and use all the information that they have on how to address some of the challenges that we have through webinars or newsletters. So we also try to communicate that to our suppliers so that they can have more information on how to cope with these difficult times. Now, this is something that I wanted to also share with you, because this is, again, from our view, where do we see the risk and opportunities? I got actually all this information from our team in different areas of the world, our procurement affiliates, and some of the areas where we see the risk are the absence of business continuity plan. And this is something that we as a big company have to have what we call BCP, business continuity plan. It's a document, actually, everybody will know what to do, how to actually from procurement, how to issue work orders or contract, even if we don't have simple things as internet access. But we understand that small suppliers, this is something that it's not probably a part of their way of operating. This is something new. Maybe they think it's not necessary, but companies, regardless of the size, need to have a plan when you have situations like this, and kind of be ahead of the game, be proactive instead of reactive. A lot of us have learned how to I'd say teach our kids from home. None of us were expecting to be teachers at home, but if we have a plan, then you will know how to kind of address the uncertainty. So BCPs are a very important document. Financial stability, it's another big risk, and because of the reduction of activity level, then now it's going to be harder to survive. The solvency of local vendors are going to become more an issue, so that actually worries us, because if you see small suppliers and local suppliers disappear, so that reduces actually the pool of potential vendors that we can use. Sustainability, or the ability of suppliers to retain the high-skilled person. Some companies have to actually lay off probably their best employees, and that's really an issue. So suppliers will have to let go of some of the people, and who knows if they're going to get them back once they everything resumes or they're able to do it. So that's a big risk. Personal movement, we all have experienced that. Travel restrictions have created a big challenge for operators and vendors. And even if you have to provide a service where you need to be in person, that's going to be very challenging. So employees trying to work from home, know everybody have internet connection. Sometimes you have to actually deal with whether you have computer equipment to do your base job. Also, increased demand and low inventory. So everybody's looking for the same product, which actually it's gonna it's gonna lower all the time the inventories, and that's gonna result in scarcity of goods and services. Everybody's looking for everything, so that's gonna be an issue. Quality concerns, I think, might arise with some goods. Not everybody's going to be able to provide their goods with the same quality or the services because you're lacking either the raw material that you used to get in normal conditions, or with the people, with the workforce, the personnel that you used to have. So quality might be a concern. Uncertain delivery times. We know actually in our personal life, you're going to buy something online and you don't know if you're going to get it on time, or if you're going to get it probably 2-3 months or maybe next year, who knows. So that uncertainty still it poses a big risk for us. Now on the positive side, I see there are a lot of opportunities that actually I would like to share with you. Some of them are that we are been discovering new suppliers. So this is very important because we are opening opportunities to suppliers that thought that will never have the opportunity. So that includes also diverse suppliers. What we mean diverse suppliers, for example, here in the US, we have companies that are owned by African Americans or by veterans and women-owned businesses. And of course, outside the US, we concentrate a lot of diversity of suppliers with given opportunities also to women-owned businesses. We're very big in this program. We have increased our supplier qualification activities because that's actually what's going to tell us whether suppliers have an opportunity and meet the minimum requirements. And if they're not, we're going to tell them where the gaps are. So pre-qualification is very important. We usually do it even before starting a tender process. Also, we're doing informal testing of capabilities, even though we cannot actually visit the suppliers, but even conversations that we can actually check if they have those capabilities. Increase local production and manufacturing. So that's something that even though it's going to be a little bit uncertain if that's going to be possible, we have seen that companies locally are now manufacturing things. The close example, the direct example I would say is mask. Masks now are being manufactured locally everywhere. So we don't have to depend on the sole source of where the original mask comes from. So now everybody's manufacturing masks. So that also translates in other goods and services. Reduce supplier overhead costs. Now you don't have to, sometimes, I mean, even if you, companies have to reduce their costs, they cannot actually afford have an office rented. People a lot of working from home, so suppliers, local suppliers don't need actually an office, and they can actually reduce things like transportation, electricity. All that translates in lower overhead costs for companies. So I think that's going to help a lot, and it's a big opportunity for them. More competitive bidding, so we're going to be doing bids more than ever, especially in that unbundling of scope of work, and actually lower prices to secure business. I think that we're going to be seeing that a lot of suppliers, they're going to be lowering their prices because actually they want to secure a contract. So even though the demand and supply, it's going to impact a little bit, I think the competition in prices, it's going to be something that it's going to be an opportunity for us as buyers. Simplified supply chains, again, this is something that comes with this situation now, globalization. I think we're gonna be, I don't think that globalization is going to disappear, but we will have to see more regionalization and localization. So supply chains are gonna be shorter, and that reduces, again, the cost. So these are some of the few risks and opportunities that we have seen. So let's move now to the next topic, which is how governments can help. And again, this is not just saying that only the governments are the ones that can help. Everybody can help. We're trying to do that by doing some of the initiatives that I've just presented. But it's important that if we want to give a message to the government, then here is introducing more financial relief programs are a very key. And so, for example, things like reducing forex exchange rate, custom duties, levies, taxes. We have seen that suppliers are having a lot of trouble getting their raw material. It's and sometimes, well, I'm going to address it later, but bear with me, the raw material imports. Enabling supportive legislation, again, I think we're going to be touching on local content policy, but these are definitely have to be either adjusted or revised to make sure that we are actually helping suppliers that and not actually giving them a hard time, in this case, by regulating too much the environment. Restructuring of loan repayment terms and reduction of interest rates. I think when you have suppliers kind of trying to get loans or credits and they're already having, some of them are getting grace periods to wait until they start. We have seen a lot of some of the plans here in the US, but that work and have provided some relief to the suppliers. So that's something that probably governments would like to consider. Provide incentives. So that's pretty much to encourage the partnership with suppliers to form conglomerates with more powerful companies to get more stability. That means create partnerships, do joint ventures, and that actually can help. You can actually help the big companies by having local presence and providing locally, and that actually is going to be helpful for both, for the local suppliers, for the foreign company or your partners, and also the buyers. Investing in research and development. I think I have seen a lot of initiative for innovation. People are getting creative. They're trying to do things like boosting local manufacturing and technology transfer. I've seen even now, and this is probably not oil and gas related, but things like their group of people or workforce or incubators that are actually developing designs to come up with a ventilator or things like that. So the same can happen in the oil and gas industry, and we can see that there's going to be a lot of innovation around that. Maybe in infrastructure, power, transportation, but all that pretty much to sustain growth. Offering financial aid to SMEs and so that they can actually keep their skilled employees or any other, this is an example, but whatever support that can be given in terms of financial aid to small and medium enterprises is very important. So again, we need to make sure that we keep them alive, present, because that's going to be actually the least of the pool of suppliers that we operators can take advantage of and consider in our processes. Okay, what I wanted to share with you is the assisting SMEs with raw material imports. We saw in some of the cases that there have been in country 2 or 3 small suppliers, in their capacity to purchase raw material from overseas. They can only purchase small volumes, and for that they're going to pay a lot of duties, or they cannot even bring the raw material back. But if all the small suppliers get together and the government help them to bring that raw material in large bulks and help the small suppliers, even by eliminating duties or even some sort of incentive that small suppliers can get large volumes of raw material so that they can manufacture. That's a big help in any way that the government can help bring this raw material for the small suppliers. And finally, enabling foreign currency, and that's to allow suppliers to pay their overseas vendors in foreign currency. So again, these are some of the ideas that came up, some of the suggestions. Again, we all need to work on this together.